Welcome to the R.E.I. Diamond Interview, your source for real estate investment jewels of wisdom with Dan Breslin.
Welcome to the R.E.I. Diamonds episode number 22 with Jason Centeno on wholesaling, marketing, and managing VAs, all while still holding down a full-time job, and why anybody would do that. I'm Dan Breslin, and on the R.E.I. Diamonds podcast, I invite real estate experts from across the United States to share their experience as it relates to real estate investing. In short, the information you're about to hear can make you money. So today's guest, Jason Centeno, has been a friend and a business associate of mine for a long time. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Awesome to be here, Dan. Thanks for inviting me.
And I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, did you reach out to me originally to sell me a property? Is that how we originally met?
Nah, if you recall, we met through Kenny Rushing when he was in town, and you were still in Philly pretty regularly. And I forget how, but we ended up meeting that day when I was with him, and we chopped it up. I'm not sure if he knew you directly or what, but I think it's because he knew you and you reached out, or he reached out to you, something like that. But that's when we met. It was weekend when he was in town. So
we physically met that day, and I believe you had reached out to me originally. We put together a deal on a halfway house for drug addicts, recovering people, things of that nature. And it was like a 10 or a 15 unit building side by side. And I was actually delivering a check when Kenny was in town.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. I forgot that was the cause of it.
So you hold the place, right? I get as you probably do, and a lot of people on the call who do any kind of advertising directly for sellers, you hold the record. The sole person who ever called and said, hey, I got a deal cooking and, was looking for buyers and like that, actually closed the deal from. Like 99% of those calls are kind of not really ever finding deals. And we'll probably talk about some of that. But you were the guy that came through, and we actually, started off on the right foot by getting some business closed. Well, Jason, let's talk about your beginning in the business. How'd you get started in real estate? And if you want to kind of give us the origination and what your background is, what you do in your day job, and how that all came together to get started.
All right, so I'll try to keep this as succinct as possible. Back, I want to say maybe back in 2000. Well, before I started in real estate, I was bumping around doing different things. And, I was actually doing filmmaking and independent film and stuff like that. So I bring that up because after many years of, producing things, directing, putting things together like that, I ended up with a ton of bills. So somewhere back in, I want to say 2002, maybe 2003, I'm looking at a pile of bills going, hey, I got 20 grand in, bills from all these films that I made and equipment that I bought and materials. Obviously they're not selling out in the theaters. I'm not making my money from that. Let me just let my ego go, let that go for a while and figure out how to pay these bills back. So I knew I had a friend. Well, actually, he wasn't my friend then, but he was my wife's cousin's fiance, and he was doing, real estate. He was a real estate investor, and that's all he ever did. He never actually had a regular job. He just was always, either an agent or an investor. So figured out, well, hey, let me see if I can learn how to do that. And so that's kind of how the journey began, me trying to pay off humongous credit card bills. Had just gotten married, was a firefighter at the time, and I still am. And I was, looking to make my income grow and get rid of those bills primarily. So I think does that answer everything pretty well?
So we figured out why you did it. What was your first deal like? I mean, how did you figure out, did you start buying rentals, wholesale? I mean, kind of for everybody listening.
So my very first deal was a wholesale deal that I bought from, let's call him David. And he was the guy who was, sort of mentoring me. And it was a learning experience. So I bought the deal. I did everything. I don't want to say everything. Well, I did a lot of things right, did a lot of things wrong. I bought it for too high, His wholesale fee was pretty high, but I didn't really know the difference at that point. But, you know, I don't let that's not an excuse for anything. So just don't look at it like, don't count other people's money. I never do. I never want people to do that with me. So anyway, I'm a big boy. I made a decision. I got into this first house. I over-improved it. This is when, you know, we were still back in 2003 where flips were still, you know, doing okay. And, you know, I put money into it. I probably over-improved it for the neighborhood. And so I didn't, you know, I intended to sell it, but I didn't sell it. So I ended up becoming a landlord. When I did that, you know, I refied my money back out, probably a little bit too much. And I went on to buy the house next door, and rehab that. And so I became a landlord at that point while I was also pursuing other properties as flips. So I guess I was a landlord first by default, and then I was doing flips at the same time. And the market started to turn, and that's when things became interesting.
So about how many, you know, you had branched off, and I know you do close a number of deals wholesale. So, I mean, how many wholesale deals on average are you doing maybe per month, or how many have you completed total, if you have any counts for us?
I mean, flips, I would say back then, I think I got through about 8 or 9. I stopped because, like I said, it was starting to be when the market was turning, and I didn't really like the roller coaster ride of it. Actually getting back into that now recently, but say about 9 back there, and then rental units I've had up to 7 or 8 at the same time. I'm building that back up now as well. So you asked how many deals total, like wholesales, flips, everything else, or was that a question as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on your buyers list. I see you send out tons of deals. You must have closed, you know, quite a few of those over the years, right?
I don't know if I've hit 1,000, but I've done a lot. I don't know that I've kept count. I just started keeping count maybe a year ago, and I think this year it's been I'm almost in the triple digits. I'm like, I'm halfway, I think.
So 40, 50, 60 deals, something like that for the last 12 months.
Yeah, and a lot of them were cold wholesale deals because just turned out to be easier to do it that way. So
this is cool. And I'm asking these questions, too, so that people listening know, like, oh, okay, this is where this guy's strong suit is, because we're going to get into some things in a minute here where you're good at these kind of things, right? So let's talk about how you made your transition, and if you consciously made a transition into, like, focusing on wholesale deals, or you know, did it just happen by default? Because you're a full-time firefighter by day, and then somehow you're getting 40, 50, 60 deals closed in the course of, you know, almost a year now, in the last 12 months, we say. So how did you make the transition? Was that a conscious decision to focus and build out the wholesaling thing, or did you, over time, just gravitate toward that?
It was completely conscious. I got tired of what happened was at one point I had 3 rehabs going on at the same time, but I had the same contractors doing them. And they were robbing Peter to pay Paul to get these things done. So I ended up with the last property being a total disaster because the money just wasn't there to do it right. And I still have that property to this day. So I think that I declared it in front of a room of, like, we did like a little networking kind of meeting we were doing with some friends, with the guy David I spoke to, another David, a good friend of mine. It was probably about 6 or 7 of us in a room, and I kind of stood up in front of everybody and said, you know, at this point right now, I'm telling you all right now, I'm going to be the best wholesaler in Philadelphia. I'm saying it now. And to this day, I still am. I'm the best cartoon wholesaler, I like to say. There's other guys that do more than me, and I'm not going to lie, but ain't nobody does it like me, and ain't nobody that's a cartoon character like me, so I still hold my title as far as I'm concerned. I created my own niche, so nobody can beat me in it. I know a couple guys have tried, but they suck at it, so I'm still good. I'm still better than them, and I'm just saying that playfully but seriously because they are really corny. So anyway,
yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That was one of the reasons I was like, I see the marketing, and this is going back for years. I mean, we're talking like we probably met in 2007. By 2008 or 9, I noticed. I don't know if you were doing it prior to that. This must come from the filmmaking background. But you definitely have an aura of playfulness with your marketing in regards to wholesale. And literally, it's a cartoon character, like your Facebook page and the Google. I don't know which photo? Because I asked, to include a headshot. Maybe I will have to include one of the characters as opposed to the real life, so everybody can get a taste for what we're talking about. But you've incorporated like a certain level of personality into the marketing for wholesale deals, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to get you on here so we could kind of like talk about that stuff. So was that just making a joke out of things, or did you like consciously say, hey, here's my brand and here's how I'm going to develop this?
But yeah, it was all strategic. So when I declared I was going to be the best wholesaler, I kind of was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to define it in this pattern. Whatever I do in real estate or entrepreneurship or even in my job, whatever, I want it to be about family and fun, right? So if you guys know anything about firefighters, I mean, tons of jokes, always, maybe off-color humor. That's just what we do, what we are. Maybe it's just a habit, a defense mechanism for some of the stuff we deal with. But it's ingrained in me. My family's always been like that. So in a way, it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to pretend to be this suit and tie person that will just say whatever you want to hear to get something done. I don't need that. I don't want that. That doesn't sound exciting to me. Why would I do that? I don't care about money that much where I'm going to make myself miserable making it. So my tenet became family and fun. And when I started wholesaling, one of the guys I'll always point to was Preston Eli, because he was doing something kind of similar. He had his own style, but he would just, pretty much stream of consciousness, say what he wants to say in his marketing. And I was like, well, if he can get it, I can. If he can do that, I can do that. And I'm going to put my twist on it, and I'm going to become this bigger than life character. So if people want to call it an avatar or your personality online, it's that, but it needs to be bigger than that and bigger than you, and it's got to be a part of you. I've always felt that. So that whole Daddy's Fast Cash character came from because I'm a dad, and because fast cash is what people are looking for their homes. I kind of turned that into my superhero name, if you want to call it that. And so ever since then, it became fun. It's like, all right, well, you know what? When I'm like that, I'm like that in real life. It's a persona, but it is a lot like me. And so I wanted it to be an easy to talk to, an approachable person that was just like you, that wasn't across the desk from you, looking at you through your computer, but was kind of next to you. It's kind of like when I negotiate with sellers, I like to get next to them instead of across a table from them. So I kind of see myself as like, all right, what is the guy across from me thinking, saying, feeling? Why does he want to open his email? Because, you get 1 million emails now. What makes you open any of them? So it was kind of like, all right, so let me put some showmanship into this thing, personality, showmanship, stream of consciousness, and then talk about houses. Because at the end of the day, when you speak to somebody on the phone or anyway, the first thing out your mouth is not always, hey, you going to buy something? Or, hey, can I give you this? Can I do that? It's the same thing as if you walk in a store and people are up your behind trying to help you, and it annoys you versus, them being attracted to you because of what you're doing. Maybe you're in a corner, looking at funny videos on the internet and laughing your head off, and they come in out of curiosity and they start saying, what are you laughing at? And the next thing you know, in a conversation, and the next thing you know, now you're their salesperson because you just shared a moment with each other, as opposed to this negotiation that was, people come armed to the teeth ready because they already have their guard up about what they want to pay or whatever, stuff like that. So my first thing was make people laugh, make people feel comfortable, and then talk about that other stuff. And if that doesn't suit them at that time, well, that's cool too, but at least we shared a laugh, right? So I've always treated stuff like that. I've always wanted to be that, wanted to come across that way because I feel like I'm like that in real life. So, and it's served me well over the years because, again, a lot of people have deals or whatever, but when I mentioned before, a lot of the deals that I do are co-wholesales, it's because at the end of the day, a lot of people can wrap up decent deals, but they can't sell them because there's so much out there. Nobody knows what to focus on. So I'm sort of a filter or a lens for a lot of the BS that people put out there. So they'll come to me and they'll know that I'm going to tell them straight and that I'm going to make them get the deal. And even if they know the other person, they might not want to deal with them. I've had that 100 times. People that know all these other wholesalers got the same deal. They're all got different prices on it. And I'll be like, yeah, well, so what? Are you going to put an offer on it? Because I can get it for you. So you can either go through them or go through me, but you like me better. So why don't you just do it through me? And they'll laugh about it, but the thing about it is they do, so it works. And, 80% of the time, these guys could have sold it on their own if they were halfway decent human being or could communicate with a person and make them feel human, like an actual valued person, whereas I do that already. And so they'll come to me knowing that they probably could have went around me, but it was just better to do business with me. So there you have it.
That's cool. And I always wondered that. So, a lot of people have been on the show who are great wholesalers, and, I wholesale some deals. I have, teams of people. And one of the biggest things that people say is, obviously, for me, I'm looking for the property that needs repairs, but like it all boils down to the rapport you have with the seller in most cases. And does the seller trust and like you and believe what you're saying? Because sometimes these sellers want, they're asking prices not based in reality. They're saying, yeah, I need $100,000. And you and I know the real numbers like 42 grand, 43, 45, somewhere in there. And if we can build some rapport with that seller and that seller trusts us and they feel like we're shooting them straight and we're telling them it's going to need a certain amount of repairs and it's going to need to sell for a certain amount of money, and any investor out there is going to need to make a certain amount of profit. And that's the reasoning behind why the price that I'm offering you today is, $41,000, $42,000. That rapport and that level of trust that you build with the seller is like one of the critical, grease the skids. It's one of the critical elements that gets the deal done, when a wholesale deal, quote unquote, is originating. And I'm curious to know, like, it sounds like, so for the listeners, his advertising, Jason's advertising says Daddy's Fast Cash, and then has, I'm definitely using the avatar. I'm definitely using the cartoon. And it has a great cartoon character there, which is somewhat, representative of what Jason looks like. And it's amazing. You'll meet Jason someday, and then you'll like have gotten so used to seeing the avatar, it's like a surprise to meet him in person. Jason, does Daddy's Fast Cash, what's the perception of the sellers? You've obviously gotten to follow up with the sellers, and those sellers gravitated toward you for that reason, more than likely, the style of marketing. And I assume that that's what a lot of these sellers are seeing on the front end of marketing that you are doing. So what's the perception in that like pre-rapport building tactic that you've decided to use uniquely with starting your business that way?
I want to be honest and say that I don't use that all the time because so many people see so many messages. I'm always testing out different things, right? So, I have flyers and magnets and certain stuff that says Daddy's Fast Cash, but is it the critical piece? No, because I send out flyers and postcards with my name, just Jason, first name, to sellers, and they call as well. Now, one of the things about Daddy's Fast Cash that makes it special is the first time someone calls from one of those flyers that says that with the cartoon character, they're usually like kind of struggling with saying it, which I kind of want because they say it funny, but they laugh when they're doing it. So it breaks down a barrier. So either they say it messed up and I'll tell them, that's close enough, or they say it right. I'm like, my God, you're the first person in the month that said that right. I'm gonna definitely have to, give you something special or whatever. The point is, like, I would say 75 or 80% of the time, they laugh about saying the name. So I already broke down one barrier because they're laughing when they're talking to me, right? So that's kind of like, it was key. I forget where I got it from, but there was some study that the federal government did about criminals, believe it or not. And it was like, okay, so when you go to the post office and you see all these federal fugitives, right? Most wanted. They go, the study said something to the effect, and I'm probably, butchering it, but this is what I believe anyway, and it was that the fugitives were nicknames people remembered and rooted for them more. I don't know how they got that. I don't know what they were asking about criminals. Maybe there was, you would think with different kind of crimes it would not be the same, but for whatever reason, the people that had these, baby face nickname or whatever nickname they had as a fugitive, they stood out more than the other people, and people secretly rooted for those people to continue to succeed because they had this nickname, right? And I mean, I think you see it in sports, and you see when people nickname something, it depends on what kind of nickname it is, because there's the nicknames you give yourself and then there's nicknames other people give you. So, it depends. But the point is, once they have that, there's a familiarity that comes about from it. Like they think they have a secret. I don't know. It's not a secret, but it's a familiarity they have with a person that breaks down, additional barriers between you and that person, coming to some kind of an emotional agreement, I guess you can say. That being said, they do work well. They stand out. I get a lot of referrals from that, just that. And then again, there's the things that people that that you actually have encountered, and then there's the things that you don't know for years, right? So the thing you don't know for years is, if you're doing this for a long time, you'll have people 3, 4, 5 years. Hey, I've been following you. I've just been waiting for a long time. I love your stuff and you make me laugh. I open all your emails, blah, blah, blah. I just never had a reason, I just never had the money, or just wasn't the right house or whatever. But, I love it. I'm ready now. Or, I just want to let you know that I'm about to buy something and you're my first call. Or then there's guys like you, believe it or not, that are like, suit and tie guys doing successful stuff. And they look to me for guidance on how to keep it fun and friendly and stuff like that. And they love my marketing. So then I become a marketing consultant for those people. And I tell them some of the things I do, and then I guide them, some of my resources or whatever. But the point is, there's two different effects that it has. So that are going to be $4 an hour and, $5, $6. If you're paying more than that, it's got to be really technical work. But for just admin kind of stuff, anywhere between 3 and 5 is a decent deal an hour. And then you can have them do it part-time. If you got the Philippines, you just have to tell them what times you really want them to be there because of the time difference, but it's not that bad from us. India is kind of terrible because they're like opposite of us. So if you need, like China, India, some of these other places, if you need people working while you sleep, like regular hours, then they're great. But if you need them making phone calls or posting ads that are supposed to post at a certain time in a time zone, kind of not working. So you got to get them on your schedule. I don't know what else, but, having dabbled with that, with hiring people virtually, has opened up my eyes and enabled me to work with people in other states, like other wholesalers, co-wholesalers or whatever. You can, one of my good partners now that I do a lot of stuff with, we like share marketing campaigns and stuff, is a guy named Eric Sorrente. I don't know if you ever met him or interviewed him, but he's a pretty decent dude. He actually long ago came to me and was looking for, guidance when he was starting. And, I took him around Philly, he talked, did some stuff. And then, years later, we're like doing a lot of deals together because, he gets really good lists and he's like really good at getting lists and getting out marketing pretty quick and pretty cheap. So we'll just split we'll split a direct mail, and then he'll handle some of it and I'll handle some of it. And then, we'll chop up the deals between each other. So that works. And, I think a couple of other people I've worked with that way, sometimes they fall apart, and sometimes they stay forever. So you just never know what it's going to be, but it does open you up to working remotely. And if you're ever trying to leave your job, or if you're ever trying to have a job that you can work from home, like right now with my 6th son, I'm able to be here and still get work done. It's not that hard. It's just a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not anything anybody else can't do. And you definitely need to look into it if you're ever trying to actually be unchained from a job or unchained from a location, which is, I think, what everybody wants these days. So
you mentioned a couple different countries. What virtual assistants have fared the best and most effective, or which, if there were multiple assistants, are the best country in your experience?
I've used the Philippines the most. When I dealt with China, it wasn't really with virtual assistants. It was more like with manufacturing places and assistance with those. But, and a person who would go out there and research stuff on the ground. That was when I left the real estate business for about a year. So that was something that was within me. But I had turned my back for a while because I was kind of disgusted. But after reflection, found that it was all in my head and that it was me, not the other people. So came back in. Took me about a month and a half to 2 months to get my feet reintegrated, and then I was back in the full swing because I still had all the good relationships. But like I said, if there's a takeaway anybody can get from this podcast, is this: never give up. But if you do get sidetracked for a while and get discouraged, you can always come back as long as you were a person of integrity doing whatever it is you left, you can always come back and people will welcome you back like as if you never left. China, okay, so Philippines was, like I said, the easiest to work with. Their English varies, but you can find some that speak really good English, and those are the ones you want doing your phone call. India, if you're going to do any kind of like web services or stuff like that, they're okay. Time differences kind of throw you off. And then, you know, I just feel like if somebody hears that accent and they're a seller, they're going to hang up because there's just so much, whatever. It's just the nature of our country where you hear that, you think, you know, they're calling from another country. They're not even in this country. It's automatically going to devalue you as a real estate investor because they're going to be like, that person's not local. They're not even from this country. They don't care about me and all the things that go through people's heads. So I personally don't want anybody with a heavy accent making any phone calls from me because I just know.
So wait a minute. You're telling me you have your VAs actually get on the phone with the sellers?
Well, I know people that will actually have a whole, I haven't done it, but have someone that can actually negotiate the whole thing top to bottom with a VA. Like get on the phone, take the questions, just be the point of contact, like the transactional, you know, what do we call them? The transactional assistant or whatever, and just have them totally do the whole deal. I know guys who've done that. I haven't done that, but what I have them do is coordinate appointments and some initial questions, like, you know, if they can, like, yeah, like for your skip tracing, you're just trying to track down a person with a number so that you can find out what they want. And then there's a few questions they can ask where if the person says, yeah, I've been trying to sell it for a while, you know, you can get that. Well, what have you been trying, you know, how much are you asking for? And some basic questions. And then I'll do the rest, or I'll instruct them what questions to ask back. So it can work both ways. If you're good and you can train somebody and you have some scripts to draw upon, you can take a shot and let them, you know, try some. I mean, what's it going to hurt? If the person gets on the phone and the VA, you know, is not successful, you can always call them back, apologize, and try to revive the deal. It's not going to die. Like, unless the person's a complete jackass or your VA was a complete jackass or you're a complete jackass, you can usually salvage a preliminary call that goes sideways. Because now you're the voice of authority, you're apologizing, and then now they're talking to somebody and they feel sort of taken care of now versus before, man. They might have just felt like they were just going through some meat grinder, corporate, you know, house buying machine. So, yeah. So I would tell, I mean, why not? You know, the worst that can happen is you get a no. But after a few calls, you can hear how they sound. I think you can do it through Skype, where you can hear people on the phone and hear the calls, listening on the calls. You can tell if they're doing a good job or not, and if it's just the person on the other line, or if it's the VA just not doing well. So it's not hard to figure how to do that.
Do you have, or have you in the past had skip traces done by VAs, Jason?
Before I was doing them myself, I would use Accurate, which is crazy expensive. I have a couple of other sources now, but I'm trying them out right now. Like I said, I just literally hired them a week ago because they had kind of amazed me before with what they did, you know, without giving them any help. And then, you know, they did good. So they found some people that I wasn't able to find quickly. And then when they hit a dead end, then maybe I have to get involved, or I can just train them on how to get, you know, how to find them more. But the problem with Accurate is they can't. All right, so we're getting real technical here, but when you use IP addresses from different countries, they're like Craigslist and certain websites. They make sure that those IP addresses are not coming through a virtual private network or another country, because they know, like, you know, people from other countries could be accessing, you know, key information, sensitive information. So they won't be able to do that, or if they are, they can get on a thing like TeamViewer, which is like a you want to call it a zombie computer, where you can set up a computer and they can get on and control your computer. But the problem is you need to give them their own computer to do that, because it's really slow, and then you can't use your computer at the same time. So you could probably just buy a $100 computer and then hook it up and set them up for that. And then they can do script traces and stuff as if they were in this country. That's what a lot of people do. Takes a few steps, but it's I have it set up like that right now. So I don't have the new guys working on it yet because it is slow. I only want them to use that if they have to use Accurant. But Accurant's expensive, and then I have a couple of other cheaper alternatives that seem to be pretty decent. Like one's like a $40 a month service. That I think Find a Seller or something like that. I don't know. I have it. It's in the Cash Buyer Control course though. The link is somewhere in there. And you know, the white pages and all those things, I mean, they're just a pain in the butt. I mean, sometimes you can find that stuff yourself, but it just takes so long. Like, that's this kind of stuff you don't want to mess with. Like, you'll be there, you know, looking for one seller for half an hour, and then you'll call them, and they'll be like, well, I don't want to sell. So, like, you just wasted an hour trying to find someone that doesn't care. So why should you do that when you could be doing something better and have somebody else doing that for an hour? So.
Can you take me through a step-by-step on how you hired the VA and what you did to train that VA to hunt people down?
Well, I kind of cheated in that. All right, so how did I find that VA? That VA actually found me. So you're going to get, once you're in this business, you're going to get lots of solicitations from different people on LinkedIn and all these other places. And your job is to kind of, you know, you can try them out. So with that particular person, they were saying, oh, we're virtual assistants and we do so many things and we help real estate investors, blah, 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 blah. I think it was from LinkedIn. And so I was like, oh, great, cool. Here's the deal. I already have virtual assistants, but I'll test you out. Here's 2 addresses. I want you to skip trace them. Let me see what you can do. And then they did it, and they did a pretty good job. So I was like, oh. And that was like 6 months ago they did that. So I just got rid of my one assistant because I think he was just, I don't know what he was doing, but I was just like, I can't accept this anymore. So I got rid of him for a while. And then I was like, you know what, though? I need somebody to do skip tracing and Craigslist stuff because, like, that's real basic. So I called him and I was like, hey, you know, you did a good job for me before. I want to try you out again part-time. So I PayPal'd him like, I don't know, I forget, $300-something. And I said, all right, get to work. And she started working on him again. Now, there's some time to set it up. And don't get me wrong, I'm still testing them out. But she got to work relatively quickly. You know, they try to sell me on full-time, but I was like, nah, I need you to show me a complete from A to Z skip trace, which they actually did. When they got rolling, they had about, they had 2 or 3 in a day, which I was surprised. But then it drops off. So I actually have to see where I am what do they call it? I don't want to be in the way of what they're doing. So I either got to give them bigger lists, or she told me, this particular person, because they do a lot of these, she told me how they've done it for other people. So I said, all right, let me see how you do it. Just do what you did with them. And when we hit a bump on my end, then I'll correct course. But let me see what all you did for these other people that was so great. So in other words, they already have previous training, which I'm leveraging. And everybody showed me that they are pretty decent right out of the box. So all I got to do is look at them and say, okay, what kind of result do I need from this? Realistically, I know that it takes me a lot of time to do them. They're probably slower than me, or maybe they're faster. Either way. So what's a realistic expectation? Well, if you can get me, you know, talking to 5 or 6 a week, let's just say, that ain't bad. I mean, it's better than I would do by myself, right? So what's that worth to me in a week? If I paid, let's say I paid $360 divided by 4, 80, I don't know, 85, 90, whatever. Yeah, 90. So $90 a week, I get 5 seller leads I can talk to. I close 1 or 2. Shit, it's worth it to me. So I don't know what it's worth to the people out there. But the point is, you kind of just got to take some shots, figure out the numbers as you go. I got lucky with them so far. But as far as training people to skip trace, you have to learn how to do it yourself, right? So does the person that's listening to this know how to do that? Do they want to learn how to do that? If you don't want to learn how to do that, then I think you should. I think you should probably test out what a skip trace looks like and maybe pay for a few. Like, I think you can individually pay for skip traces anywhere from $15 to $25, or you can try out one of the services for like $40 a month and see $40. I don't know, they're like between $40 and $100, and see what it gets you. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to make the phone call to the person, then is the point. Because you can have all the information you want on somebody. Like that's the hardest part, is actually making a phone call. It's like, oh, all these things are going to get there. What am I going to say? How am I going to talk to them? Best just to start making phone calls and worry about that when you get somebody that that's responsible. Because all you have to do is say, hey, what I normally say is like, hi, I'll use their first name. Is Leonard there? No, Leonard here. Oh, well, I know this is kind of a weird question. I'm hoping you can help me out. I'm looking for, somebody who might know something about this address, whatever the address is, and it's saying this name and this last name. Does that sound like anybody in your family might know him or anything like that? Oh, yeah, that might be my cousins, uncles, brothers, sisters, whatever. Well, do you know anybody I can talk to about that particular property and try to find out? Because, I might be interested in buying it, but I gotta get some more information because it's kind of falling apart, and I just wanted to know, what's going on with it. And, usually that'll get you to the person to talk to, or you might hit a dead end, because with skip traces, 3 out of 5 phone calls you're going to make are going to be dead ends. So got to keep doing them. So, or keep looking. You got to start to be able to be a little bit of a detective. You got to start cross-collateralizing addresses and cross-referencing addresses, different addresses. The more common the name, the harder it is. If they got a weird name, it's easier, like a weird spelling or like some kind of foreign name. I'm sorry, but Asians are the hardest because they put their names backwards in public records. They do it anyway, but or sometimes Middle Eastern countries, they have the same name twice. So don't mix those up and it becomes difficult. But that's the kind of stuff you'll see when you're doing that. Middle initials help. Usually that'll narrow things down. So you got to just try a few different ways of finding people. And then worst case scenario, hire a detective up. Maybe you get a relationship with a detective. You don't hire anybody overseas. You just have the detective tracking people down. It's probably expensive, but if you're going to do it all the time, you can work it out with them and, probably get a decent rate. And they have access to criminal files and all kinds of fun stuff. I've never done that, but I know that it's an option. So it's just a matter of negotiating with some detective agency, a rate that you're going to with. There's all kind of ways to get it done.
Yeah, I don't know much about skip tracing, but I just had some real revelations recently with hiring VAs. So I had some other friends who were doing the VAs, and they had gone through 6, 8, 10, 12 VAs who, they've got tracking programs which are seeing where they're at on their computer to kind of timestamp and prove that the VA is working, which is a valid concern. Is the VA actually working on my stuff, or did the VA hire themselves out, for the same hour 10, 12, 15 times, and, they get the last laugh because they're making $35 an hour. And meanwhile, none of the work's getting done, which is a real risk and why a lot of people don't necessarily want to do it. So I went on to onlinejobs.ph, which is a Philippines place, a marketplace that you can pay and you can see ID, identification validations, and they score, based on their skill sets, they score the VAs, and they've got, a whole series of screening process there for that. And I think I paid $45 for a month, and then I could post the ad, and I had the ability to write emails back and forth, whatever the options were. I paid for it for 1 month, and I wrote the ad, Jason. And here's where the real nugget of gold is for the ad I wrote. I wrote an ad, and I do the same thing when I'm looking for a service from Craigslist, so I can weed out. I want to weed out those that aren't paying attention. So I want anyone who's going to work for me, to do a job for me, to have a very detail-oriented, clear thought process and clear communication abilities. And so my ad is a test. I will describe with a question in the headline of my Craigslist ad or my onlinejobs.ph. I'll ask, are you experienced with United States real estate? Because I'm looking for a real estate assistant. And then I'll talk about what I'm expecting and the times that I'm expecting. I'll say, hey, I'm looking for somebody between the hours of 9 and 5 United States Central Time, and I'm looking for these tasks. It happened to be Craigslist is all I had at the time, and now I'm using them for Podio and public records and comps updates, and I'm using her to update my websites. So she's doing a lot more than she started with. But I started with Craigslist ads. Yeah, Craigslist. I think I just started with Craigslist ads and ran into all those problems that you were talking about. And so I described what I needed done. And then at the end of the ad, I told them to respond to this ad, reply with the subject line, real estate assistant. And that was in quotations. So anybody that respond. You'll get, when you put an ad like this up, you're going to get like a spam. They'll have this copy and paste response about how they're hard workers and they know great English and they're going to do this and going to do that, and then they're going to hit you maybe sometimes with their hourly rate or their weekly rate, and a lot of times it's not converted to U.S. dollars. So immediately, if they just put something else besides real estate assistant in the reply subject line to the email, I don't even read the reply. I just delete it. I know that they disqualified themselves and they probably didn't read or understand my ad that I wrote in English. I'll ask them also, when you reply, I need to know your salary range that you expect. Internet service wasn't correct, or whether the time was off, but sometimes they're replying to so many people, and if somebody hires them at a better rate, that's it. They're just going to ignore yours from that point on, or they're going to disappear. So like VAs will disappear on you if you're not paying them an appropriate amount. I typically pay mine every week at like a Friday night. I get the invoice and I pay them immediately. Do you pay them in advance typically, Jason?
What I used to do was I had it set up with a credit card where I would get an invoice monthly. But with that one, I would just be on top of, like, if the guy took a day off for a holiday or whatever, stuff like that, then, they would dock it, or he can make it up. But I never really need that. With this particular one, I did pay up front for these people before, but only reason I did that is because they already extended themselves for me when they did the other skip traces and did everything I asked them to do, and performed well. But generally, I don't really do it. It depends. But I do like some of what you said. I definitely have to consider doing a little bit better ads, to sort through the type of people. But, like I said, that was something I learned. So I'm the type of person that maybe I just roll the dice a little bit more than most people. I gave them the payment up front for these guys, for this particular set of people, because they had already performed. So, but the thing is, if they don't perform as expected by a certain time, then there will not be more forthcoming. So that's it's not an automatic thing. I have to actually, just like you, set it up to pay again if I'm going to do that again.
Yeah, and it's ironic. Like, I have another friend of mine, another partner, who had hired a VA, and here's one of the issues that I noticed with him. And I don't know if it was I don't know if it was on his behalf, or the VA's performance. So, like, you have to understand, when you're hiring a VA, they have a life and they have responsibilities in their life, and they need to, make an agreement with somebody and hopefully get a full-time job in order that they can kind of like trust. Like, if you can keep the VA busy, at least this has been my experience, if you can keep them busy with a certain amount of tasks and a certain amount of training, and you can clearly communicate your instructions, and you give them enough work where they feel like at least they're going to get their, 35, 45 hours worth of work, and they can consistently count on that to like pay their bills, and they can live off that, then they're not going to be like shopping and staying on the site and looking for another job, another replacement. So part of the challenge, at least for me, I got a couple tasks together, and once we got through the initial tasks, I had to like come up with new tasks and new ways to train for those new tasks, my VA. So I kind of built out a series of videos using Camtasia to display each of the things on a website, so that if there were any questions, she can go back and she can watch the video again. If there was something that was missing, she could watch the video again. If she's doing a task once a month, she might have forgot a month later how we, schedule these emails or which list he's got to go to. She'd go back and check them out again. So, part of the challenge I think that my business partner faced with his VA is that he really didn't have enough tasks to keep the VA busy for 8 hours straight and, 40 hours a week. So she probably was looking for somebody else that was a little more consistent with the amount of work that she could hire. So, it's kind of a two-way street. You can hire for part-time if you only have, one or two tasks that need to be done. But I think I would just guess that it was consistency. Like, my VA's worked out great. She gets the job done. Occasionally her hours are somewhat flexible and she'll shift to another time of the day that she's working. But I'm okay with that. My tasks are like somewhat time important, meaning they got to be done within like that 24-hour window that I have for the test to be done. So I don't have my VA like answering the phone or making phone calls to sellers, but I have my VA, going in and putting public records links in, going in and renewing the Craigslist ads on a daily basis through the team viewer method that you described. I have her doing those kind of tasks where if she, gets sick, for example, and can't come in that day, she'll come in at 9 o'clock at night my time, and she'll work through 1 o'clock in the morning my time, and I'll wake up to confirmations that each of the tasks, whatever I had laid out, were all done. So she's been reliable and been with me for a few months, and I think that'll be an ongoing relationship. And I definitely recommend VAs if you have the task capacity and the ability to sit down and clearly think through the tasks you're going to hire a VA for. It was probably one of the biggest challenges I had to overcome.
I'm going to put it to you this way. Just like if you've ever read 4 Hour Work Week, read it, because that's what opened my eyes to this. But if you're working a full-time job and you can't answer phones or make appointments or do any of that stuff, you need a VA. I mean, if you're paying them $4 an hour and you're making 12, 13, 15, 26, whatever you're making an hour, you're leveraging your time. So you can't think of it like, well, what's not getting done that could be getting done for you, so that when you do have free time in the evening or on the weekend to go make money with real estate, wholesaling, doing whatever you got to do, somebody's got to be doing that. Like, you need that consistency. If you're always waiting because you can't afford it, like, you need to find a way to afford it. Work a little extra overtime or whatever you got to do. Like, that's key, because, I mean, while I'm on the phone with you, somebody's doing skip tracing, right? So, like, same thing on your end. Somebody's doing work for you while we're talking and we're having a conversation and we're learning from each other. You couldn't be doing that if you were doing all that busy work. So you got to, look at it like you need to do that. You need to figure out a way to hire somebody to do all that stuff that you can't do while you're not busy. Now, if you're not busy, if you don't have a job or something like that, God bless you. Go do all the work. But if you work and you need to support a family, like most people, then go and hire a VA to do something. So test it out.
Well, cool, Jason. Do you have any book recommendations for our listeners and for me, real estate related or otherwise?
Well, since we were talking about VAs, that 4 Hour Work Week is key. It's older, but I was just going through it on Audible again, and it reopened my eyes to a couple of things I need to be doing again, especially, related to real estate and just systems. Book called Frame Control by R.E.I. Claff. It's more about negotiations. I mean, we're talking about dealing with cash buyers or buyers, or, sellers, anything to do with that. And, it's about how to control an outcome. I don't know. You can go on and search on YouTube and see some book reviews. The guy actually does do some YouTube videos and talking about what, the science of frame control. But anybody who's going to do any kind of negotiation should read that book. Another good one is Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone just, once I got hip to that guy, I like listening to a lot of his stuff. Some people might think he's a little douchey. I don't. I think he's spot on with everything he does. But I just think, like I said, he's direct and he says what he says. He's high energy, and it's almost like if you're trying to keep up with a Ferrari. But I mean, if you can even try to keep up with the guy or do some of the stuff, implement some of the stuff he's talking about, and just use some of his closes or some of his advice, you're going to be ahead of the game. That, some of that stuff, like I said, definitely changed my whole way of talking to people and just getting an agreement with people. I used to be a little bit combative. I think we all get that way sometimes, and it was kind of like, just agree no matter what a person says. One of the key takeaways from one of his books was just, you can agree with someone without feeding into their story or their BS about why they can or can't do something. You can just agree. Doesn't mean you believe it. Doesn't mean anything. It just says you're just agreeing with them. I believe your name is Dan. Whatever. Just because once you do that, then you're setting up for something down the line, a better agreement, I guess you could say. But you just read one of his books. I think those are the ones that pop into mind right now.
Sounds good. And it looks like we're getting to the end here. Do you have any final jewels of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners, Jason?
Test out hiring somebody virtually, whether you just go on Fiverr, buy something and see what it's like. That's an awesome site. You can buy anything. You can buy a lot of things for $5. I would just buy a few things for $5 and see what you can buy. It's a really good site if you want to play pranks on people too. So there's always that. There's fun stuff you can do and business stuff you can do on there. So Fiverr, so figure out how you can hire somebody virtually to do stuff for you so you can maximize your time. What else? Don't quit. If you do quit, unquit, come back. It takes, just because you stop something doesn't mean you can't restart it. I think all of us as entrepreneurs know that you got to be real comfortable with failing a lot. And sometimes your failures can knock you out for a long time, longer than you think. Sometimes you think you're done, but you're not. And if you think you're not done, then you can always come back and start again. As long as you're above ground, you got a shot. So don't quit. That would be for, I don't know, that's for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it works.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you said for beginners, and I don't know, what was the other one for experienced investors?
Yeah, man.
For experienced investors, I just like to say, kind of always keep being a student, because things change all the time and quickly. And if you get into this rut of I know everything, everybody, I know how to do it, I'm not going to change, you definitely, you might be okay, but you're going to shut down a lot of avenues that you're probably not even going to, when they hit you, when certain things hit you, you're not even going to see them coming because you just weren't, didn't have your finger on the pulse of where things are going. A million times I've been in situations where guys are like, oh, these deals, like, I need a flip. Like, they all want these home runs, and they don't move on anything unless it's a home run to them. And I'm like, how many times I've seen people turn a home run deal into crap because they just did the wrong stuff. And I've seen people turn marginal singles and doubles, just bread and butter kind of things, and turn them into like gold. And people were like, wow, you're a genius. Like 2 or 3 years later. Why is that? Because the person that just, to keep moving forward, they took like a deal that was like, okay, but, because it was moving forward in the direction that they said they wanted to go, which was, I don't know, own 20 houses by 2017 or whatever. The point is, it didn't all have to be home runs. It wasn't always flips. They tried out different things, and they dabbled and they experimented. And so, and sometimes they create good deals out of nothing deals, and other people just totally destroy a good deal by just not listening, not doing, not being aware of changes, just doing things the way you think they should be done. So all I'm saying is for the guys who are like experienced, keep your eyes open, be flexible, always be learning. Don't let your ego and your experience stand in the way of actually getting, moving forward and getting progress in your business. So that's about it.
Cool. Jason, you talked about the cash buyer control course, the free wholesaling information that you put together. How can people get some more information about you or download that course?
Pretty simple. Cashbuyercontrol.com. Opt in. It'll take you right to the course. Just become a student. I don't know how many lessons are in there. It's probably like 15 lessons. Some of them are kind of just setting the stage, and then there's meat all over the place in there. So you should just go in and I framed it as their whole purpose was I kind of got went online. I was seeing a lot of gripes about the relationships between wholesalers, real estate agents, and cash buyers. Everybody's at each other's throats. So I actually did some interviews and was getting to the meat of it. And like everybody thinks that the other person, it's kind of like a three-way bad relationship. So I kind of created it as a situation where everybody can see where the other person's coming from and how to make those relationships work better. So there's something in there for people who are going to like be wholesalers and co-wholesaling. There's something in there for real estate agents. And there's something in there if you're actual investor buyer for you to like, I guess, get ahead with, on deals where, there's a lot of people after the same deal. Well, what's going to make you get the deal is the relationship you might have with that agent or that wholesaler. So it was, like I said, I did it for that reason. It was fun. It's kind of funny. Some of it's off color probably, but whatever, that's me. And, it's free. So, and I hope that is of value to some people. I plan on doing more courses, some probably not as extensive as that, some maybe more, but, I kind of like doing it after I did one. So like I said, I'll probably do more.
Well, cool. Thank you for giving generously of your time and your wisdom and knowledge and coming on the show, Jason.
All right. Thanks for having me, Dan. Appreciate it.
Cool. And thank you all for listening to this episode of the R.E.I. Diamonds podcast. Are you enjoying what you hear here? Maybe you know someone else who'd also enjoy this episode. The best compliment you can give to me and them is a referral. You can sign up to receive email updates of new weekly interviews, episodes at www.reidiamonds.com. As a bonus for signing up, I'll send you my special report titled 7 Sources of Off-Market Deals. That website again is www.reidiamonds.com. And you can also subscribe in the iTunes app. Just search R.E.I. Diamonds and click subscribe. Until next time, this is Dan Breslin signing off.
Thanks for listening to the R.E.I. Diamond Interview. To receive the R.E.I. Diamonds newsletter and interview monthly, sign up now at www.reidiamonds.com.